Shwmai, croeso nôl. Hello and welcome back to the Bluebirds Nest. Neath yr adael gleision. As always, we are sponsored by DragonBet, Wales' finest bookmaker. So for all of your up-to-date Cymru Premier and other sports betting markets, please visit dragonbet.co.uk. Now, before we get stuck into episode 17, quick congratulations to both Lucas Davis and Harry John. Lucas, who at 17 is the development squad captain, and Harry, who joined us recently on episode 13 of The Nest, have both been selected this week in the Welsh College's under-19 squad. Now, I know there was over 50 trialists involved from across the country, so it's great news to both of those Pembrokeshire College students. So, llongyfarchiadau, congratulations to you both. Now then, the episode many have been waiting for here on the Bluebirds Nest. We welcome good friend to myself and many at the club and all of West Wales, it seems. It's Wall of Famer Wayne Wolvesy Jones. Wolvesy, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Cheers, right?
It's good to have you on. We've spoken about this for weeks about getting you on in, almost the anniversary week to you stepping aside, and we'll get into that. But there's so much to go through.
Yeah.
And obviously, you recently found yourself back in the dugout. We'll talk about that again in shortly. Firstly, I want to go back 20 years. You were a Carmarthen regular. But you made the journey down the A40 to the Meadow back in 2002. It's incredible looking back there.
Yeah.
That's your love affair with the Bluebirds, which, as I mentioned, has recently capped off with your name, along with Mickey and Pems, becoming the first 3 inductees in the Wall of Fame. I suppose it must of your time and what you managed to achieve over your period with the club.
Yeah, obviously when I was contacted by the club to accept the reward as such, because I think it is a reward in terms of the effort and commitment that I've shown to the club over, like you said, the past 2 decades. I'm really privileged and honoured. I made that quite clear from day one. So to receive it, again, I go back. I think there's a few more in the pecking order before myself, but obviously they decided it was the right time for me, which I'm very humbled by.
What stands out for you then of that decade? What key moments stand out for you?
Well, the first decade or the second?
Well, there's 2 periods, I suppose. Obviously, as a player for a number of years at the club.
Yeah, I mean,
in career then.
Yeah, I think as a player, what stands out obviously for me personally is that when I first joined the club in 2002, 2003, we were fighting relegation, and we had to win up in Carnarvon. I'll never forget it. Big game in order to maintain our safety in what was then the League of Wales as such. Which we'd done, which is a great achievement. And then a year later, I could see the club was developing off the pitch as well. Obviously, Darren Brace was the manager then. And, he signed really good, strong players at the time, experienced lads, a lot from Cardiff, mind, I must say. And we gelled. Obviously, I was fairly new to the club. And over that 2 to 3 year period, obviously, we achieved to get into Europe in the UEFA Cup, played out in Iceland. And as a player, that was obviously the target, but it came, I think, quicker than expected, really. And I think that's credit to Darren Brace and Mickey Lewis, Pants, as known then, as the management team to get us there, because they knew exactly what they were doing, how we went about it. The personnel they brought in, it was just the right balance, the experience, the youth. We had a lot of local lads as well, and I class myself maybe as local there, even though I am from Carmarthenshire. But and a lot of good youngsters coming through. And when I say that, you had players like your Lee Hudgels, Dylan Blaine, who was a bit younger than me, was involved in that squad. Peter Blaine, who was obviously a reserve goalkeeper at the time. But we also had players then that maybe have never come to notice with the club. Guys around the place, we had a few from the St. Clair's area that were coming through the development then with Ronnie Bynan, who was like academy manager there. And I know his health has deteriorated over the years. And, he was very well thought of when I first came to the club. And it just grew and grew. They had a reserve team then at the time where obviously players were playing in the Pembrokeshire League. So if we were depleted as a first team, I know Darren was reliant on, like you said, your Adam Raymonds coming through the ranks. These were like the sort of the youngsters coming through who all had a lot of potential. And obviously, Jack Christopher, I could go on. There's quite a few in terms of who've represented the team at first team level, and maybe then played, their trade in Welsh League later on in their lives. But it was a very well structured club then, and the highlight was obviously the European campaign because. But the year later, then we went 2 seasons unbeaten at home, and you don't often do that. Fantastic record. We were a really hard team to play, although we were the furthest team on the end of the olive branch as such in the league. So teams were coming down here and they were finding it hard, and we made it hard for them. And that was part of our game plan, to catch teams early. And at those days, then you didn't have many teams staying overnight. It was all traveling on the day. So preparation was different in terms of how we set out to what maybe it is now, because clubs are fortunate, finances, they can accommodate nights over and they prepare better. But it was you turn up on the bus or cars or whatever they used to do, and after a 4 or 5 hour journey, and it was important that we thrived on that. And that was a big philosophy from Darren, to be fair, and something that I tried to take in then maybe later in my days as a manager, because psychologically it made a lot of sense. But yeah, going back, and then the season after was when we got the Welsh Cup semi-final. We played Carmarthen in Stevenage. We lost 1-0 as it happens, but that would have been really good for the club in terms of if we got to the final, because there's good financial reward. Obviously, we were on the back of a European campaign, and the club were, we were getting well respected in the league at the time. And then obviously, a year later, Darren finished, and Derek Brazil came in then. Was a great guy, done things differently, brought different personnel in. And then obviously I had a few seasons with Del there, and I retired at 29 myself personally, which is quite young. I had a couple of shoulder operations. I know as a footballer people say shoulders, but I suffered a bad, with dislocation. So I had to have both shoulders operated on, which held me back most probably. And at 29, then I didn't really maintain my fitness levels that I should have, and obviously it just reached a stage that at the level I was playing, I couldn't get there. And I spoke to Derek at the time, and we both agreed I think it was best that, I finished. And that's what I done. And then obviously I took the coaching journey then, dug my heels in. I'd done a bit at the time with Carmarthen Town Academy, and was offered a job then with Newcastle Emlyn in the lower leagues of Welsh League. So learnt my trade that way really then, right?
Yeah, and I know, some of the names you've just mentioned there, you've reeled off some potential future Wall of Famers themselves, but some of them came on the journey with you. And I remember fondly our time up in Newcastle Emlyn. That's where you brought me sort of on my own coaching journey back then.
Yeah.
There were some good times up in Emlyn as well, wasn't it? And you and obviously Sean Cresser in charge at the club there. We were, well, what is now League Two, the sort of third tier, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
And they were some good times up there. And I suppose it was in at the deep end for you at Newcastle Emlyn, first into management. They were tough times, but we had some good times too, didn't we?
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, that came about, obviously Matthew Price was in charge at the time. And when I finished playing at the level with Haverford, I had a bit of a break, and I played local with Johnstown in the Comanche League with my friend who was in charge, and just to tick over because I loved the game, and the levels and the demands weren't as much. And then Sean Cresser was with Matthew Price, and obviously they were trying to coax me for a while to come up. So in the end, I made the choice. I went up there, seen the rest of the season out, and then out of the season, I made a decision that I was finishing football. Then I was, my playing days were over, and then I got a phone call from Newcastle Emlyn to say that, they were looking at changing the management and would I be interested, blah 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 blah, and I wasn't really not keen is the word, but it had nothing that really appealed to me that way yet, because I didn't have no coaching badges, didn't really know nothing about management, and I had just literally signed up for Carmarthen Town under 16s academy just to try and experience what it's about. So thought long and hard, and they said if it wasn't going to be me, it'd be someone else, blah blah blah. So obviously I met them and just decided, yeah, let's give it a crack. And it was all the view then that if Sean, I'd only do it if Sean Cresser, who was a personal friend of mine at the time anyway, would stay in the management with me, because obviously he's had experience prior with Matthew, and I didn't know much about how it was all run, and I learned a lot off Sean in that period. And then, like you said, we had a good working relationship for many years. And after I think a season and a half, I got approached by Haverford then. Would I like to come back down, because I think Gavin Chesterfield was with Haverford, but he was finishing, and Derek Brazil was going to come in the end of season to see the season out. And obviously it was with a view that the club was more or less facing relegation, and we knew we were going to drop down a tier. And it was a case then that Derek would see it out to the end of season as a favour to the club, with myself and Mickey Ellis to possibly take over in the Welsh League the season after, which was obviously a higher level. I'd had a season and a half in terms of management with Haverfordwest, so obviously I was learning my trade that way. So yeah, I just thought it was an opportunity to come back to a club I loved. I played there for 7 years, and it was just a no-brainer for me. So that's the decision I took then in terms of coming back to the club as management.
And you mentioned you started your coaching sort of with the academy at Carmarthen. I remember actually coming to watch a couple of those games with, boys I knew growing up who were learning under you. I remember speaking to you shortly after you said you were hanging up the boots, and you said, "That's me done. I just want my Sunday mornings down Trinity Fields," if you remember.
Yeah, that's true.
And then a couple of days later, I see, well, perhaps Twitter wasn't so much of a thing back then, a couple of years ago, but I remember speaking to you in Tesco's or something. You were like, "Yeah, I'm the new manager of Newcastle Emlyn," and you haven't looked back, I suppose. It was a quick decision for you, and like I said, you've gone on to bigger and better things, and obviously the time at under Derek Brazil, you've mentioned some key influential names that you've worked under. So you must have picked up a lot. So when you brought me down to Haverfordwest initially for the 2014-15 season, what a season that was! It obviously the ultimate game, the decider up in Aberdeen. Take us back to that. What do you remember of that night up in Aberdeen?
Well, obviously for 3 seasons prior to that, Dave Hughes was the chairman with Rob Summers originally, and obviously myself and Mickey took it, and then they brought in Leighton James for a very short period because they felt maybe me and Mickey at the time were a little bit inexperienced where we wanted to go. I mean, Leighton only lasted there 2 months or what have you. So in the end, it was a case of, Mickey was happy to just step aside. So I took the reins myself. And then obviously I approached Sean Cresser to bring in as my number 2, with Mickey being a coach. And Sean came down and, we huffed and puffed. We missed out I think the second season to Taftswell, who won the league. We finished second. And obviously with the ground criterias, obviously Taftswell didn't have it. But then it was a stage of if the North Wales 2 teams would have it, they'd get promoted. So obviously, there was different issues. So that's how that went. And then the season after that, we just missed out again. We finished 3rd twice on the bounce. But then obviously going into the 3rd season, that we had to win up in Aberdeen by 5 clear goals. And again, I know it goes down in history because, Twitter and everything else was mad at the time, social media. But it was one on merit. It was one fair. We had a very good team. Let's not take anything away. The players like your Luke Borelli's, even Declan Carroll's, very talented footballers, these boys. Okay, consistency may have been our lack at the time or throughout the season, but on their game and on their day, no better in the league. And I think on that particular night, everything just clicked. And it was hard to believe because that's most probably as a manager, I've had some good achievements, but that's got to be the best, isn't it? In terms of you don't go away to Aberdeen, which is a tough nut to crack at any day, on like a Tuesday night or Wednesday night. Conditions weren't great. Massive crowd there, if you remember right.
Yeah.
Because I think the whole eyes were watching it, and it's just something that most probably the problem was it happened so quick, and it was at the end of the season. We never got a chance to properly celebrate that as a group, as players. Because you're promoted, you've got to look to next season as a manager, coaching staff. We didn't really have time to think. You think you've got to try and get players in, so you meet the chairman, budgets increase, you need more experience. You've got some players who have made the decision that they're finishing with you this season and they're moving on to other things. So it was all such a quick period that we had 2 or 3 months to prepare for life in the Prem. And I go back to it, and I speak to Sean regular about it now because it was hard work. And when you think about it, we never really celebrated that. We didn't even have that particular year an end of season dinner to celebrate that. So it just glided on to the Welsh Prem, and we just got on with it, and you look back and you think we should have most probably given ourselves more recognition for what we'd done. But it never happened, and that's the way it was. But yeah, that will live in the memory for me, certainly.
I'm just, as you're going through it now, I'm thinking back. I remember we drew at home. We were 3-0 down at halftime to Ponadawa, I think it was. Am I right in saying that? I think it was
Goitre
Ponadawa.
United, I think you're saying.
That's right, Goitre United. 3-0 down at halftime. You rang the changes halftime, 3 off, 3 on. It was an emotional, volatile dressing room, to say the least.
Yeah.
And that was in the run. It was like 4 or 5 games. Had we lost that game, we ended up drawing 3-all. We could have won it, I think. Remember late on?
Yes,
and that was a real turning point in momentum, I think, that followed then. I think we won every game at the end then to clinch promotion in second place. What was a challenging, and rightfully so. There was a couple of weeks, I think, turnaround before starting that Cymru Premier season in 15-16, and we came back down. Again, flirted with promotion for a number of years, but then finally, right at the end of the COVID situation, then points per game, sort of average ratio and all that, then went back up. How did you find the sort of the experience, hopefully once in a lifetime experience, of that behind closed door season, then the first season back?
Yeah, I mean, I went for a gap, didn't I? Once we got relegated, I went to Aberystwyth for 2 seasons. And obviously, Sean took over there, and obviously, he finished in his post there then, and I was offered to come back. And it was like, I bedded in that season, because obviously I was assistant manager again for 2 seasons, and it's a totally different role, so you've got to get back into the management way of thinking. Obviously, when I accepted the job offer, I was inherited what was Sean's players really at the time, and Tim Hicks's, and seen that out. So, we bedded that out that year. And obviously the year after then, when, I tried to do things myself or what have you, that's when obviously the Swansea University won it and we came second. But like you said, in terms of all that as well, we had the COVID, the season. It was just the last 3 or 4 years for me in football has just been bonkers, if you want to use that word. Between everything and then the transition and everything, it's, I've had a year out, and I look back and reflect on it, and I think you just don't know, because you're working full time, how you do it, and I'm not just talking physically, mentally, but you get on with it, and the seasons are ticking by, but I mean, it was tough with COVID. It was really tough.
You spoke there then about stepping aside, and you quite publicly said it was the right decision, probably more so for the club than yourself. Did you have any regrets then over the weeks that followed after you stepped away?
Yeah. Totally. Throughout the course of the year, you regret because, you question yourself, did I believe enough in myself? Did I believe enough in my players at the time? And, at that particular time when I made the decision, I've spoke most probably more about it in the last 2 months than I have in the last year. I mean, as it happens, it's a year tomorrow, I think, to the date. 6th of December, I resigned. Not that I'm counting on nothing, mind, but no, and listen, I live and breathe football. People who know me know that. Toughest decision in my footballing life I've had to make, and I've made some tough decisions. Trust me, I have. When I accepted the job to take over from Sean Cresser was most probably my toughest decision personally to me, because Sean's a good friend of mine, and under the circumstances he left, obviously, I mean, it has nothing to do with me, that type of thing, but that was my personal biggest choice, which still, even now, doesn't sit comfortable with me, what I chose to fill his boots as such, because, you think of that, but I go back, I did work hard to where I went. There was an opportunity. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be doing nothing. So, but in terms of my career and my love for the club, it's the toughest decision I had to take away, because we lost 4-1 to Flint on that Saturday night. And we'd lost 4 games on the bounce prior to that. And I knew that in this league, for whatever reason, we had Bala at Connors Key to play for the next 2 games. That the likelihood, because we were depleted with numbers, you don't lose 6 games in this league and keep your job, really. Although Rob, the chairman, was really supportive to me, but I was petrified, right, of getting the sack, if I'm being honest with you. Didn't really want it, for lots of reasons. My affiliation, how well the club has looked after me for years, what I had done. I just didn't. I thought, if I'm going to go, I've got to make the right decision for me. I was due to apply for my final application for the pro license the week after. And I was thinking all these in my mind, thinking, well, if I go on to my pro license and I do get the sack in 2 weeks, where does that leave me? And again, I could have been selfish and weathered it and done it, but I felt the timing is December. If a new manager comes in, he's got 4-5 weeks to maybe see what he's got in terms of he can dabble in the transfer window. And I was trying to put the club before me as well. I know that may sound a bit thing, but I look back. I spoke to Waggy, and I never thought, if I'm being totally honest, that football would have broke me like it did. I came back on the Flint that night, and I was tears, and I'm quite an emotional guy, but I couldn't speak. I didn't speak to no one on the way back that night. I texted the chairman. I said, look, I need to meet you. I need to speak to you. Fair play. You said, look, we'll do a Zoom meeting when we got home. So I'd done a 4-hour journey on the bus. I came home. I explained my reasons to Rob, who was taken back a bit, but very supportive, I've got to say. He made it not easy for me, but, he'd look, sleep on it, when you make a decision, which I done. Spoke to him in the morning, and, I started again then thinking, have I acted on impulse, blah, blah, blah. And he said, look, you said enough to me last night, Wayne, he said, and I think your mind's made up. He said, look, you concerned me with some of the things, and it's football-related things I said to him as well, not just about me. And he said, look, maybe it is best now you need a break, because he said, I don't like, he's a friend of mine, but he said, I don't like seeing you like this. And basically, I spoke to the wife, and and that was, it was done there and then. But it took me a while, like you said, I mean, just to function how you do, because, you're spending 7 days a week on it. And then there's nothing. And I know people say, your phone stops, and it literally does. I've had a lot of nice messages and players and everything wishing me all the best, and a bit shocked, disappointed. But for the club going forward, I knew it was the right decision. And to where we are today with Alpha West, it's clear as day. I think it is. Yeah.
It's obviously, I know you kept a very close eye on the results. You were kicking every ball from afar.
Yeah.
Phase 2 of the season, as things, obviously Pems and Jazz took the reins for a short period of time.
Yeah.
And then obviously Nicky Hyan came in from Belgium, who I thought it was a really nice touch. Nicky mentioned you a couple of times in sort of Scorio interviews, didn't he? Sort of saying,
he did, yeah.
Points that you'd accumulated in the first half of the season assisted, with the sort of total team survival of relegation. So what did you think of the second half of the season then, as you sort of watched from afar?
Yeah, well, like you said, I could see, a different structure, a different method of playing, and obviously in that period of the window, and it was a few weeks till Nicky came in. So, obviously I think coming from foreign soil, it was a big culture shock for him, how Welsh football is, and again, listen, done things a lot different, played at a higher level than myself, coached at a higher level, brought them the methods to the club, which reached the bar where I most probably knew Rob wanted it to go. And I knew for a fact when Rob first came to the club, he had a vision. And I said, look, if I can get you any part of the way to where you want that club to be, I'll work my balls off as such. No, and he knew that. And we'd always had honesty. But, Nicky coming in, I think he raised the level of professionalism. I think, obviously, again, the situation was different. He's full-time down there, living there. He had more time maybe to commit and do different things. The practicalities of it were different to myself, because obviously I'm working full-time and it's a part-time role to me. And then, you can restructure things, and even off the pitch, and that's great. It's great for me to see. And, I spoke to Nicky a few times, only met him the once, but, via texts and stuff. And if there's anything I could have done, because obviously he inherited what was the nucleus of, say, my squad. And, I knew their strengths and weaknesses, and I give him all that sort of details and information. And I just wanted him and the club to do well. And it wasn't about me, and my time at Alpha West had come to an end, and, I can accept that. And like you said, down there, I go down there even now, like until last week, kicking every ball with them. I'm a supporter now, like you said, I'm not associated with the club. The club will always be close to my heart. And if there's anything I could do for them, they know I'll do it.
It's nice to sort of look back and reflect on it. And obviously, Nicky left. He went, was offered a great opportunity back in Belgium, and Pens has come in now, who I know you know extremely well. You've played together at Carmarthen, and
No, we never played against him.
You play? Oh, okay. I thought you.
Yeah, no. Tony was with Carmarthen when I was down Half West. We missed each other in a period there, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
obviously, sort of Tony's come in with
Yeah.
the same standards, and obviously that pro license. That's such an important, integral part to taking the club forward, and that. In his experience, you worked together at Aber for a short period of time as well. So you just mentioned you've been down several times. We've been on the sort of Scorio on the Facebook links a couple of times. What's your sort of current thoughts and feelings of the season so far?
Well, I was only there last Friday. And listen, beat Penabont 2-1 great. And they were always a boogie team for me, Penabont. I must say that. Throw that in though. Even when we were in what was Welsh League, then we used to play them. And they were Brynterian dash Penabont. They transformed and, really tough nut to crack. But, great win. Listen, Tony's a very good friend of mine. We're really close. And, speaking to him after the game Friday night, that he's starting now. I can see Tony's finding his feet now, and you can see on the pitch how things are changing. And I never doubted that, because when Tony was obviously offered the post and took it, and I spoke to Rob afterwards, I said, look, you've got a diamond there. I said, and I mean that, because where he's been is knowledge of the game. I worked with Tony for a short period in Aber, and I learned so much off him in a short period of time. It blows you away a bit, because again, I'm not mocking myself, but his levels are there to where mine are, due to his experience and his knowledge. And listen, the club's in great hands there, I can tell you now. And obviously with Waggy, Gary alongside them, who have both got massive experiences and at professional level with the Swans and everything. These are the type of people the club need to really push them there. And I think they're just in great hands. I really mean that.
They've probably both got some fantastic stories on you, and I hope to get them on in the new year. I think around mid-season time. I hope to get them both on at some point.
Yeah.
Have you got any?
They have got a few.
Have you got any stories about either of them?
Oh, I have.
Any that you could quote publicly?
No, like you said, I mean, listen, they do their work really well. They're professional how they go, but they know how to enjoy as well. The story that sticks to me, Gary, when he was out in Cyprus, and he used to say it like numerous times on the bus, and they go for these hot baths with like these Russians, and if you didn't go, like these were like heavy mobs, and it's just and knowing Gary, his characteristic and his mannerisms, the way he says it, that they were whipping him in a hot bath, and these are things that maybe shouldn't be discussed on here, but there's that there. Pens, I got a few. I'd rather leave them to us. I don't think this is maybe in a pub. If supporters want to ask me, I'll tell them over a few pints.
Nice, man. No, I appreciate that. And, I'll pose that question to Waggy when he comes on.
Yeah.
It's
a bit more than I've said, put it that way.
Quick fire questions now, then. A couple. Everybody knows you really well in and around the club anyway, but a couple of key questions that have come in. I'm looking forward to these. Favorite TV program?
TV program? Only Fools and Horses.
Do you know, I had a feeling you were going to say that one.
Listen, if ever you're depressed, you don't need a tablet. Just put UK Gold on and watch that, because they'll have you laughing in about 5 minutes. It's the best antidepressant a person will ever need.
Favorite film?
Blazing Saddles. It's comical, brilliant. I know obviously a lot of politics to it, but not in that way. But it's very humorous, and I was brought up on that. I mean, and a lot of friends. It was a big film when we were all in school, and very well spoken about. But yeah, if I'm being honest, I could watch it over and over, and I still laugh about it.
There's some classic one-liners there. Half the playing squad currently probably wouldn't even have heard of that film.
No, most probably not. No.
The difference in generations, I suppose. What other sports do you enjoy playing?
Playing? Well, I turned my hand in golf, as you know, right? Recently. And in the summer, obviously, a lot of downtime. I enjoy golf. I do. I mean, I'm not great at it. I don't pretend to be that. But playing, most probably snooker. Yeah, snooker is most probably, I find it relaxing, and I just love watching it more than maybe playing it. I'm a big snooker fan.
Okay, interesting. There's a couple of people have mentioned sort of snooker, pool, and things like that.
Yeah.
I can feel an off-season tournament on.
Love to.
A couple of people have said, and table tennis. Any good at ping pong?
Yeah, I say, yeah, it sounds as if I'm big-headed. Look, I worked in a psychiatric hospital for 15 years before I worked in the community, and a lot of, our basic distractions to our patients at the time were facilities like table tennis, like pool, because they're very therapeutic games that, they occupy people's minds. So you got to play a lot of that. And, when you've worked there 15 years, you become fairly good at it, I suppose. And
Okay.
that's not big-headed. That's just,
That
a lot of
was
downtime practice in work, I suppose.
one of the favourites in the tournament, I'm sure then. Okay.
Huh.
If you could have a meal with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
My icon, Steve Bull.
Steve Bull, brilliant.
I've met him 3 or 4 times, obviously outside grounds following Wolves.
Mm.
But yeah, I'd love to spend an evening in company and just, I've most probably watched him over 100 times in his career, and I could pick questions at him, and I'm besotted with him.
Brilliant. Now, this is coming directly from me. I've always wanted to ask you this.
Go on.
You've got many signings, many that have worked well for you, some that perhaps haven't, we'll say. If there's one player that you look back that you wish you could have signed from your time in charge at Haverfordwest, who would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. This may be a bit uncanny to where I am now. And Dave Hughes, who was a past chairman, who was really supportive to me, Dave was as well. And he obviously wanted a lot of money at the time. But there's one striker who I actually working with now, is Luke Bowen. I chased Luke for season after season. And he won't mind me saying this. And can we get him? Can we get him? And we basically, obviously, he was playing a lot of the Welsh Prem then when we were in maybe the Cymru South or the Welsh League then. And obviously the drop in standards for him, but obviously it was at the money side of things as well. But never really to get him over the line. And now, I like you said, in my new role now, I'm working with him. And I actually mentioned to him last week, I said, I finally got to work with you. And obviously, and you're laughing because Luke's obviously coming to the end of his career as such now. And, but yeah, Luke would be one, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I tried Luke for season after season, and, I never really got him on board.
Brilliant. That's obviously a Britain Ferry Llansour. We'll come on to that before we wrap up. But the favourite goal you ever scored, my next one then?
As a player, obviously, well, it's 2. One with Carmarthen, if I'm being honest. I had goal of the month. It actually went on to be goal of the season, believe it or not. I know it sounds a bit, in about 1999, we played a team which were then into Cable Tel. And I'll never forget it now. My dad's got it on video on VCR, believe it or not, because it used to be on the old Club Pile Droid and things like that then. And I played a 1-2 with Ryan Nichols, who was up top, in the Leckworth Stadium where they played then in Cardiff. And I've bolted it right into the loop of the top corner from about 30 yards.
Nice.
That was most probably my favourite goal ever personally. But then for Haverfordwest years ago, Mickey Ellis will remind you of this. We played TNS away, which was, they had just formed the TNS in the old Llansan Fry ground, not where the new Saints play now. Free kick. And I've for us to win the game 2-1. And I've bent it round the wall, and I've not top corner, but I've put it in, and we've won the game 2-1 up there. And that, with Haverfordwest, is my favourite goal. But like you said, in 13, 300 appearances, whatever it was, I've done, I scored 13 goals. And TNS happened to be one of my lucky charms, because 5 of my goals were against Llansan Fry -TNS. Yeah, it's funny.
It could have been one more had you not missed that penalty many years ago as well then.
Against TNS, yeah. You're right. You're right. Andy Mulliner saved it. And I copped it off their embrace after that, let me tell you. Yeah.
Your favourite goal that you've sort of witnessed then by a Haverfordwest player with you in the dugout?
There's 2, they're very similar, right? Very similar. Early season, as a player, the best goal I've ever seen witnessed on the Bridge Meadow was from Richie Adams, who's obviously a Narberth lad. Richie played with him. But Richie Lewis then, believe it or not, Louis, he sort of scissors kick from a corner. Oof. And I mean like a bicycle overhead kick, and he's put the ball in the top. Jordan Fowler's just got a couple of crackers, I got to say, right? And I mean, Jordan doesn't score tap-ins. He scores good goals, well-made goals. But for me, the answer to your question is Richie Lewis. I don't know who he's against, but I can picture it now. He scissors kicked it from the edge of the 18 box and he's put the ball in the top corner. And that's the best goal I've seen at the Bridge Meadow, personally. But Richie Adams as a player was the best goal I witnessed.
Okay. I remember Follows, there's one that stands out. He hit it with the outside of his right boot and it's just curled around into the top left corner. That stands out. And do you remember one with Antonio from about 35
Free
yards?
kick?
Oh, he just drilled
Was it a free kick? Because, yeah, I do. Straight in the top right-hand stand, should be in the clubhouse. I do remember it, yeah.
And to think, when you think back of some of the players and some of the goals, incredible.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, like you said, some very good, yeah.
It teases up nicely now then. The dream team question. Now, normally this would be pick your 5 aside. I couldn't let you just narrow it down to 5. So the best 11 players, for any reason, I must say that, it doesn't have to be the best potential, ability-wise. They can be for a multiple range of reasons. But the best 11 that you've managed, coached, sort of who've been in your squads then.
Okay. So that's over the period. Right.
No pressure.
I'd go Craig Morris in goal, Hovis.
Hovis, yeah, okay.
Loyalty, mostly, had 5 or 6 seasons there. I would play 5-4-1 formation. So I'm going 5 at the back. I would put Sean Pemberton, my skipper, Sam Roden, centre half, Dylan Reese to sweep.
Yeah.
Jazz Richards on the right. Like you said, I mean, I signed Jazz, but I didn't realise actually how good he was until I signed him. Obviously I know his CV looks great and that, but when he's fit, he's a very, very technically good player. On the right-hand side, Antonio Shudo on the left. Ants again on his day. I know he's been out the game a while now, but very good technical player. 3 in mid. Shall I go 4-5-1? Did I say so? That's my 2 wide players. 3 in midfield. I'd play 2 loyal players to me. Maybe not the greatest technically, but I know they're in the trenches with me. And players I can trust would be Ricky Watts and Nicky Palmer's in the centre midfield because they will run all day for you. And Kieran Lewis, I'd play as a 10. Kieran, again, I brought to the club, I think, fantastic player. I know he's with Pontypridd now, but I rate Kieran really highly. So there's basically my 5 in midfield. And I've had some good strikers, under me, Jack Christopher, early doors, Darren Griffiths, goal machine. Of late now, you've got Ben Fawcett, again, who's come through the youth ranks, but Ben's got a massive future ahead of him. I'd most probably go Jordan Follows up top because I think Jordan scored the year we got promoted from 2013 up there, and he finished with us with about 8 games to go, but he came back for the Welsh Prem. He scored about 22 goals for us and unbelievable goals. Again, Jordan is his own worst critic. The boy should be still playing a high level. It's sad that he isn't, but on his day, unplayable. And, I stick by that. Jordan would go up top for me, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Jordan is probably one of the most ability-wise, one of the best I've seen in the Meadow. Great guy off the pitch as well. Bit of a loose cannon. He just became a lad as well. So I must say congratulations on that, Jod. An extra striker available to put in your team here.
Ben Fawcett. And there's more to come from Ben. Forsey.
Yeah.
Forsey and Follows would cause havoc.
Definitely.
Also, but again, Ben's got a big future ahead of him. I know that.
Excellent. That's some team that is. Fair play. You've done well, and notable names to miss out as well, I'm sure.
There's a lot. I mean, obviously prior to it, I was thinking it, and I got a list here, and some of my ears will be burning with some. I don't doubt.
You'll have a few texts coming through off this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Good stuff. Right then, coming to the present day, we've got a fixture away to Newtown this weekend. It's a Sunday fixture. It's a 2:30 p.m. kickoff. If you are not travelling, there's various ways to follow. Obviously, Tom will be on the Twitter duty, so play-by-play tweets will be going out across the club's social media. but the game is also live across Facebook this weekend. So keep an eye out for the link, which will be published online in the next few days. Bluebirds 1899 members who are involved in the Predictions League, check your emails and we'll have a league table update next week. Wolves, final question for you now then. We've come around to the present day. You've had a year out, but only recently announced that you were assistant manager coming in at Britain Ferry Llansamwel, alongside Andy Hill.
Yeah.
I think Penn's brother Ray is there as well.
Raymond's it.
Obviously, former. I think he did have a couple of appearances many years ago. Obviously, you mentioned Luke Bowen there as a former player as well. But how's life back in the Cymru leagues?
Well, tonight's my first actual game back in the dugout. You play Abergavenny this evening, so to be fair, me and Andy are good mates. Done our badges together and played each other for years. So me and Andy have always known and kept in touch. He lost his assistant manager a few weeks ago, so he was looking to replace him. And I had a contact with Andy, and he felt if I could come in and give him some support, which I think it's an ideal time for myself. I've had long enough out of it, been chomping at the bit, and I made that quite well known. Turned down, a few opportunities, and I felt the next move for me had to be right with, the ambition and the drive and blah blah blah. So, spoke to Andy in depth, met the chairman in Ferry Wynn and Andy Dyers, who's director of football there. Had good meetings. They explained to me what they want from me, what obviously the club's ambitions, and it really pricked my ears. And I've been with them now 2 weeks as such, but in terms of my registration, which didn't go through last week, is through now. But tonight is my first night to support Andy and the players in terms of trying to get where they want to go now, which will be the Welsh Premier League.
Yeah, and well, obviously this going out on Thursday night. Hopefully you would have picked up those 3 points tonight, so to speak, on Tuesday.
Yeah.
The fixtures are coming thick and fast then. I mean, you've got Swansea Uni, what will be tomorrow night, Friday night this weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lot of derbies across your sort of Swansea, Neathborough, Talbot area as well. So there'll be no doubt you'll be bumping into people, left, right, and centre who you've crossed paths with in the past. What's the sort of trajectory and what's the ambitions for the club this season? Is it promotion?
Well, listen, I think the club strive a lot on development. They like to see the progression of the academy players coming through. That's been clear, and these players to be given the opportunity first and foremost. Which, obviously Andy's in charge, and he's been working to that tune, and it seems to be working well. Obviously, we're a few points off Barry, but I mean the aim is to get promoted in the Welsh Prem and play the top flight football. That's without question. I think they're very, very calm in how they do it. They don't want to do it overnight and be ahead there. They know what they want as a club, the infrastructure with the academies, the ladies teams, everything. I think everything it's a club, like you said. I think that's on the rise. I think it's really ambitious. It's a good catchment area for players in terms of attraction. The facilities are improving there. The training facilities, the things they do behind the scenes, the analysis and stuff, they're ahead of what I would say most Cymru South teams in terms of how, and their next step will be, when they go into the Prem, they won't be overawed and take things on new. They'll have an infrastructure ready for that, and that's something that really appealed to me.
Yeah, it's exciting. So you can see from afar, they've been established in the Cymru South for a number of years, but they always seem to be there or thereabouts, and particularly this season, there's a number of teams neck and neck at the top. It's an exciting time for the club, and from what you said, that you can see on social media, there's good foundations being laid for potentially getting that promotion and sort of sitting at the top table, if you like, the Cymru Premier. So thank you. I appreciate you. You're a busy man. You're between work and the football again now. And
all or nothing now again, isn't it?
It's great to have you on. Fingers crossed for a fixture link up soon, perhaps, whether it be, maybe in the Cup, but who knows, even in the Cymru Premier.
Yeah, like you said, we'll see what happens. But no, thank you, right? I appreciate it. And again, thank you to everyone down the club with yourselves, because the new chapter for Wayne Jones starts now. And, obviously, end of an era. But like you said, I'll still be a follower
Top man,
from far and away. But no, I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone from the club who's supported me over the years. And, it'll never, ever be forgotten.